learn how to build the basic HTML structure for our expense tracker application. In this lesson, we will create the areas for our expense tracker. So we are going to be adding the application title, balance, total income, total expenses, transaction form, transaction list. But in all of this, we are not going to be adding any JavaScript yet. So we are just basically going to scaffold the expense tracker application by building the HTML structure. So let's move on and move into our HTML, which is where I'm currently in. And these P parts correspond to the space here. So I want to put all of my code inside of this place. And so the first thing I want to add is I would like to create a div. Let me make it an empty div. And inside this div, let me add a basic H2. And this basic H2 is going to just have a simple text of balance. And I can come under this and add a P tag with an ID of balance. And so let me put this as 0 for now. Or let me use a dollar sign. So let me say it's at $0. So let me just duplicate this process. Another H2, and this one is going to be for our income. And it should also have an ID of income. And for that income, let's set it to 0. Let's have another one. And this time it's going to be for expenses. Now let this have an ID of expenses. And set this to 0 as well. Now, after these three, let's have maybe another H2 for add transaction for now. Add transaction. And let's have a form. Set the form action to empty because currently we are not adding any action to it. But let me give it an ID and call it transaction form. Transaction form. So since I'm not using this for now, I can remove it. So remove all the clumsy that this might be giving. And inside this form, so let's add a label. And let this label just have description. I think we are coming along. And after this, let me add a break tag. So let me come down and add an input switch. Now, inside this input, I want to add a type of text. At least the input field will expect a text. So this is not JavaScript, it's not semicolon actually. Then I also want to add an ID and let me give it a description. And finally, let me add a placeholder. Enter description. So with what we have now, then I can just go ahead and then add a break tag so that there can be space. So now after this break tag as well, let me add another input. And let's give this a type of number. That is, this input field expects a number. Then ID is going to be amount. Since it's amount, then it definitely should be a number. And also a placeholder for enter amount. And then we can add a break again. So I'll close this and then come under it and add the break tag. So now you can see that our app is coming along very well. We balance the income expenses, then add transaction. So after this break, then let me add a label and let me just give it type. Let me add a small break. After this, add a select what are elements with an ID of type. Now go ahead and add option and give it a value of income. And inside, let's put a simple text of income. Then add another one, option, and set value to expense. Then add expense. And you can go ahead and close our select. Select. Yes. So this way I can select whether income or expenses. So there was a typographical error in the select. So I put I instead of T. So now that I have this, then I can add a break tag again so that there can be clean space in my application. And after this, then I can just add a button with a type of submit and a text of add transaction. And now close my button and my form. And so this is all that we need for this application when it comes to scaffolding it with our HTML. So we're starting our expense tracker by creating the HTML structure. First, we have the application title, which is already here. Then we create 3 areas for our financial summary: balance, income, and expenses. And each one has its own corresponding ID. You can see income, expenses, as well as balance. So later we will need to find this ID so that JavaScript can update them later. And next, we moved on by creating a form where the user can enter a transaction. The form contains a description and amount and a select element here where the user chooses whether the transaction is either income or expense. And finally, we created an order list with an ID of transaction ID. I think we added an another list. Oh, sorry, there's something I missed. So after the form, I want us to, let's add another H2 here. And let's just give it a simple text transaction. And under the H2, so let's put a UL here with an ID of transaction list. Good. That's now, this is where our transaction is going to be shown. That's the purpose of the UL. And so our transaction will eventually appears under this place. So actually at this point, nothing is calculated because we are focusing on building the HTML structure. So moving on, we are going to see how we can begin to apply JavaScript to what we already have in this first lesson.